Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Welcome back to the Patrick Riggins Show. This is me, Patrick Riggins, along with our trusty producer, Tori, here, getting the music queued up. For those of you not watching, he was holding the cue sheet up and pointing out where, hey, I highlighted where we needed to cue that up, but I guess I didn't put it in front of your face and say, cue this.
For anyone who doesn't check us out on the video camera, it is fun. It's got to be funny.
You miss a lot.
Especially this time of day, because this is the last hour for me, and I'm about goofy as it could be, as it is right now anyway, so.
And I pretty much come in that way.
Yeah, I like picking on Patrick, so he lets me do what I want.
Yes, Tori gets a lot of latitude during this show.
God help us all.
Yeah. All right, again, this is the Patrick Riggins Show. You know, this is the one radio show where we try to make points that are grounded in truth, sound logic, and reasoning, and more importantly, is not afraid to voice them each week. Last week, we're just going to hit this kind of real quickly. I delved into a little bit of controversy when you have me up over here, Tori. Okay, when I said this, here's a clip of it. I would like to relate this back to this rash of shootings we've had recently. The problem isn't guns, as some gun control people have said as they try and take advantage of a bad situation. I think the problem is the sensationalizing of these events when they occur. So, what did we get happening this last Friday? In case you didn't catch the news, there was another shooting. This one was in New Jersey by an employee of a store. He killed 2 other employees and then killed himself. And what had he written about? Quote, I'm starting to see why people go on killing sprees, unquote. Of course, I addressed this during the show last week as well. What does all this attention do? Why, it shows all the other potential idiots out there that if they want to be famous, this is a real good way to achieve it. For a person who is not wired correctly mentally, this is the ultimate enticement. The same thing has been demonstrated to occur with suicides. So much so that it has been given a name, the Werther effect. When one suicide leads to others done in the same fashion as the first, it's called a suicide contagion. You see, by talking about these events over and over in the news, interviewing anyone and everyone connected with them, we are glamorizing all of this along with the people involved. Personally, I think this borders on journalistic irresponsibility, as I noted in this clip. By sensationalizing the event is not some of the blood of the people hurt or killed by the next psycho on the hands of the news media? I would argue that it is, because they are encouraging the next person who seeks infamy via the 24/7 news cycle. Of course, that should be seeks infamy, I guess. Nowhere else did you hear anyone drawing this comparison. That's because this is the only show with me, Patrick Riggins, who sees these types of parallels and isn't afraid to state them on the air. As I said in the introduction at the start of this show, I don't answer to any political advisors. I don't answer to any handler or policy types who would push me to be politically correct. That's because if I did that, I would be shortchanging you, the listening audience. And I refuse to do that. I have more respect for you than that. And you expect more from me than you do other run-of-the-mill show hosts, even the national ones. One day they may achieve what we have done in such a short time on this show, but I highly doubt it. They are beholden to others, and eventually everyone will succumb to it unless you are on the lookout and are careful. These people show up and tell you how great you are, how great your show is, but why don't you just soften your rhetoric just a little on this point or another? Don't point out all the problems the party you're most closely aligned with is having. Don't keep saying how there really is no difference between the two major parties. Incredibly, a lot of hosts are corrupted by these influences and start making excuses for the candidates they support. They get defensive about them. They don't like it when you point to their past voting record and ask if they have really changed. Or are they just saying what they need in order to get elected? Over this past week with the Republican convention and with the coming Democrat one, we have a big hoopla about how this person or that person is going to save the country. I got news for you. Our country, if not already lost, is almost there. We cannot survive the debt we have piled up. We are going to have to default or go into hyperinflation some point in the future. We have counties, cities, and states going bankrupt. And when our country can no longer borrow at a reasonable interest rate, we are going the same way with bankruptcy, but just at a country level as well. All this singing and laughing, joking around is not going to be so funny then. Unfortunately, a large part of the population is going to be caught like a deer in headlights. They're going to wonder what happened and how things got this bad so quickly. People, though, like listeners to this show, will not be in that group. You can point to the many, many times the argument was made for reducing spending and how the establishment parties laughed. The reason they are laughing, though, is because it isn't going to hit them half as hard as it will hit the rest of the country. You see, their stuff, it's all paid for. Their houses, their cars, their yachts. Plus, they have either taken a good portion of their money out of the country and or converted it to solid assets. So when the dollar crashes, they won't be left holding much of that useless paper, unlike you. When our currency finally stabilizes again, they'll just cash in their solid assets for the newly issued dollars, or whatever we'll call them, and probably at a better rate than when they cashed out, putting them that much further ahead. But I'm not here to talk class warfare. Much the opposite. I'm just explaining why no one in the upper levels of society is really that worried about the things you are worried about. And if they are worried about it, you can bet they aren't interested in changing things. The solution is to remove these people from their positions of power. And the way to do that is through Congress. Get people elected who will worry about the debt. Worry about bureaucrats who are taking away our rights and freedoms with rules and regulations put in force without any sort of congressional vote. Representatives who will end the Federal Reserve. If you don't know why that should happen, just Google Federal Reserve and Ron Paul. You'll get more information about how this corrupt organization is ruining the dollar and our purchasing power. And no, this isn't conspiracy theory. It is fact. I know a lot of times you hear on the radio, you hear hosts talking about the Federal Reserve like it is some sort of sinister organization bent on taking over this country. It's really not. What is happening is what you do every day. People are dealing in their own best self-interest. It just happens that the best self-interest of the Federal Reserve and your best self-interest are not always the same. Unfortunately for you, they have the power and you don't. But if we get together and elect people who will start rolling all this back, then we'll move that power from Washington and the so-called elite and back to the people where it belongs. As I stated on this show before, and even today, and probably will again next week, the key to making all this happen is you. Not your neighbor, not your friends, it is you. Get on Google and find the next local political meeting with the party you agree with. Find out where and when they are meeting, and go to it. Get involved. Get your friends and family who think the way you do involved as well. Stop spending all your time griping about how things are and start making a difference. All it takes is a little bit of work if a lot of people are doing it. Many hands make for light work. But realize someone has to be the leader. Someone has to step up and decide to start turning this ship around. If you feel like you can do it, then there is no better time than this week to get started.
You can do it.
See, even Tori's getting pepped up here. Even if you don't want to be a leader, you don't have to be. Every great leader has a huge support network. The person in charge cannot do it all. You could distribute flyers or put in yard signs or work phone bank, making phone calls. Maybe you even know someone who would make a good candidate for office. Convince them to run. If they're a little reticent about it, show them the support network you've built up. They aren't going it alone. It'll be a team effort. Now, if it sounds like I'm cheerleading a little bit, well, okay, I am. I guess in that way, I'm not real different than what happened this week at the conventions and what will happen next week at the Democrat convention. The key is I just want to get you involved. I want to be talking about your efforts and successes on this radio show one day. By getting involved, as I said, you start turning this ship around. We have too many people in the population today who want to sit back and watch someone else do it. They think the job is too big, or they don't know what to do. The key is just to get out there and educate yourself. These people who are active now politically didn't wake up one day knowing everything they needed to know. They learned it through, a lot of them, through on-the-job training. And that's the best training you can get. That's all I'm asking. Just go out there, start getting involved, and we'll start seeing this mess that we have literally in this country start getting cleaned up and turned around. We're up on the bottom of the hour here on the Patrick Reagan Show. It snaked up on me here. So I'll stop pestering you for now, and we'll be back shortly with more. I am Patrick Riggins with the Patrick Reagan Show. Join us in a couple of minutes.